Thanks. Hey, everybody. So I'm an executive producer and one of the founders of Slant Six Games. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about, it's kind of a post-mortem, about our studio transition. So some obvious questions you may be asking. Slant Six Games is a studio in Vancouver, BC, and we have a history of PSP, PlayStation 3, and other console titles. We started out with a couple of SOCOM games that we released through Sony, SCEA, and more recently we did a Resident Evil title, Operation Raccoon City, with Capcom on Xbox 360, PC, and PlayStation 3. So quite a big background in console shooters, action games, large teams, and very little experience, as you can tell, in the mobile space. Now, this is a question that a lot of you may be asking, is what the hell does he mean by AAA content, AAA development? There's a lot of things it could mean. We could talk about production values, quality bars. We could talk about some kind of game design process. You know, you go from your concept phase to pre-production, big management processes there. A lot of it's involved. What it really means, potentially, is budget. I don't think we had a budget that was under $4 million for any of our titles, just because that's how much it costs to make a console game. But instead of talking about what it means, let's talk about what it implies. AAA implies lots of people. So this photograph, actually, you can't really see it. It's from GDC. It's not of my team, but it looks a lot like the stairwell coming down from lunchtime. Lots of guys, mainly guys, unfortunately, after a particularly exciting talk here or after a long morning coding. Our smallest teams, I think, were around 35, 40 people. That's as small as it gets. The largest teams were well over 100, all on one team, often in multiple studios, often in multiple continents. We had people working in Japan, Canada, in the US, all on one project, trying to get it all done. So it's a very big project. It also means long timelines. So concept phase through to pre-production, production, you start ramping up your team, 40, 60, 80, 100, 130 people. It gets bigger and bigger, and it goes on, and yet this is too short. The timeline I'm showing you here was a ridiculously short timeline for the project that this particular graph represents. Once you're through to finishing the project, after maybe 20 months, you got a couple of months of breather, or rather, building DLC, building patches, trying to release more content to get things moving. And then you have this big release. It's like, huge moment of glory. You've got this big marketing push going on. You release your game. You're super excited. It's the big moment you've all been waiting for. And it's very similar, building AAA games, very similar to releasing a movie. It's all about the first week, maybe the first month. You've got a big marketing machine going. You're focusing on press releases. You're focusing on trying to get as much information out there as you can to make your game sell. Now, you guys have probably got a very different impression of how to make a game sell. You buy users, you acquire them over months. You go viral, you do all of these things that in console land, we never did that stuff, mainly because it's not what works. In the console space, you're selling your box product on a shelf, you're trying to get as much of it out the door in the first month as you can before the next big blockbuster takes your mind share. So, a month later, you release some DLC, try and keep the momentum going, but really you're done. Your moment in the spotlight is done. You move on to the next thing. So after Resident Evil was done, we realized that we'd been focused completely on console for the last little while. It'd been taking up every single moment we had in the studio, and we'd seen the mobile space getting bigger and bigger over the years, kind of while we were developing Resident Evil in particular, kind of 2010, 11, and 12. We wanted to get a piece of this. We wanted to get involved. We wanted to diversify our studio. So we decided to focus on something that leveraged our strengths to begin with. And we worked with, this is the wrong slide. We worked with Microsoft Game Studios on this product, Galactic Reign. Galactic Reign was a shared development where Microsoft did the actual game portion on the Windows tablet, a Windows 8 device. We were working on the cloud rendering portion. It's a science fiction strategy game where you get to build your fleets, you build your armada of ships, send them out into battle against people in the cloud, and then we would render movies of these big space battles in the cloud. And I'll show you a movie of that in a second. And what that did was it allowed us to leverage our experience in graphics, rendering technologies, the real kind of technical part of the game development. And we could avoid some of dodge some of the bullets around monetization and free-to-play, and work with a partner that helped us get there. Let's show you a movie. Oh, good. I think I'll go with the recommended settings today. Can't see that very well. So in the game, you get to construct your ships, construct your fleet, send them off into battle, and then once you've done that, out comes, a few minutes later, these rendered movies with thousands of ships, really complicated space battles, all constructed in the cloud algorithmically. Stop the videos and look at the different metadata in there. Pretty cool stuff. And what we were aiming for, and what Microsoft was aiming for in partnering with us, was some of the best looking mobile footage you could get. Some of the best looking mobile games. That's what they were looking for. So, there we go. As I was saying, what that did was it allowed us to really focus on technology and avoid some of the pitfalls. Once Galactic Reign was underway and our team was kind of diversifying, we had this large team on Resident Evil of well over 100 people. And we had to do something with them. We wanted to move into the mobile space, so what do? Make some jam. We decided to hold a series of design jams to figure out what exactly we were going to do with all of these people and what kind of product we were going to make. So our design director, Thomas Pirinen, held a series of design instruction sessions. We taught everybody in the studio, not just the design crew, not just the production people, but artists, QA, engineering, everybody about the processes of game design, the mechanics of form follows function, and all the rest of these things. A lot of the game designers in the room probably know off by pat. And once we'd done that, everybody kind of felt empowered to pitch their own pitches, which was awesome. Everybody in the studio had the opportunity to do that. And if you guys aren't holding design jams inside of your studios and getting everybody's input, I would strongly encourage you to do it. We had some of our best designs were from QA. A lot of them were from engineering. We did not expect this stuff, right? We thought, no, they're just going to pitch us technical designs of some code. No. We had some really, really cool creative ideas. We had racing games pitched at us, sports games. We had sci-fi stuff, platformers, soapbox racers, all kinds of stuff. And one of the things we ended up with was pirates. The other one was zombies. You know, seems fairly obvious, but these things pop out. The first game that I want to talk about is Max's Pirate Planet. This is a kids app that popped out. One of our QA people turned designer came up with this particular pitch. It's a kids app, kind of a board game style product, totally different to everything we'd ever done before. You know, we were on mature rated shooters, and suddenly we're building a kids game that looks like something from Disney. It was really fun, and we decided to make it a paid app to try and avoid the monetization traps that can be associated with kids games and Smurfville and I don't know what else. Trying to avoid that. Turns out to be quite hard to market kids games, especially paid kids games that don't have IAP, because you don't want to sell IAP to kids. So that was a bit of a trap. But the game is incredible, and I'm super proud of it. And my friend Kelly, who's actually sitting at the back there, is doing a talk on the process we use to learn from the children's interactions with the games and really kind of figure out what they wanted to see. So that's tomorrow at 2:30, right? 2:30, yeah. Great. How am I doing for time? Great. I'll show you a little short movie of that, a little trailer.
there, pirates! You ready for adventure? Legend has it that Barnacle Bill hid a hoard of treasure in the fabled sunken city.
I'll swab the deck with you.
And then hid pieces of the map in treasure chests all over the globe. The chests are protected by creatures you'll have to defeat. Get your friends and family together for adventure on the high seas. If a player is close enough, challenge them for one of their treasures in a duel. Get 4 chests, and you should have enough map pieces to find the sunken city and get all that treasure. Everybody ready? All right! Yo-ho-ho, and off we go!
The other game, if I can bring this back up, that I want to show to you was The Bowling Dead. So The Bowling Dead was a mashup of Kingpin meets Zombieland, the movie, the game. It was kind of a B-movie style game. We wanted lots of 3D content, 3D zombies, great looking environments, voice acting, story, the whole works. We wanted to kind of make it a really kind of high quality product. This was a game that everybody loved to pitch. It was an instant favorite in the studio, come up with by one of our engineers actually. And everybody loved to pitch this around it, and we eventually landed it with Activision Mobile Publishing. Really, really fun little game. What we had to do to build these 2 games, though, and start the ones that we have underway, was to give them a mandate. So they needed to be small teams, not the 100-person teams, or the 40-person teams, or even the 20-person teams that we'd been used to. Bring them down to really small groups of maybe 12 at the high end. Short timelines, not 3 months for pre-production, 3 months for getting it all done. It's a big difference. What we found was really interesting, that this allowed some of our hidden talent, our latent talents, to come out during the production of these games. So we had associate producers who became lead producers on these titles. We had junior game designers who ended up leading the game design teams and really showing their skills. We had coders who'd only done AI before, writing front end and all kinds of other crazy stuff that they'd never done. Our artists were allowed to flex their muscles and start doing 2D painting instead of just modeling buildings or whatever it was they were doing before. Really allowed us to stretch our talents. And I'm really proud of the people that came out actually and stepped up to the plate to create some of these games. It was quite an amazing process to watch. It's one of the things that I'm most excited about to move forward with, is seeing some of these people grow in their careers. Great stuff. So we had a prototype we wanted to see. We gave everybody a week, 1 week. So there's no way you can create a prototype for a big 3D AAA game in a week. There's probably no way you can really create a deep prototype for any mobile game in a week. But what you can do is you can show that the gameplay is fun. So using Unity or XNA or even Excel, if it works that way, right? Strategy games can often be shown just through the numbers. Great, show it to us. Prove it out. Show us a monetization plan. What are you going to sell? When are you going to sell it? Even on paper, like, is it consumables? Tell me something. What is it? What are you selling? How are you making your money? Don't just tell me how cool the game is. The short timeline really required a mindset change as well. So we had a lot of process previously, and some of our leadership people didn't like this bit so much, but we skipped pre-production. We went straight from a concept and that 1 week prototype straight into, okay, let's go, let's build it. You've got 3 months, let's go. A lot of the guys who were on the senior end who'd been building console games for years, decades, some of them, really thought we were throwing the baby out with the bathwater here. So they felt it was hacking, not really using our experience, but it worked. And what it meant was that our leadership team really had to keep a laser focus on getting the job done, getting to the end game, pushing the team to finish what they had, instead of working on new concepts, changing what they had or to make it better even. One thing you don't have with console is minimum viable anything. It's finished, complete, large, done, tidied up, complete. The only thing that you may extend is a bit of DLC here and there. So what makes a good MVP? What does minimum mean? Is it even viable to be minimum? I don't even know that. So there were lots of arguments and discussion, lots of learning around that stuff. Again, keeping it small was the mandate. Keep it as tight as you can, because everybody wants to blow it up. One of the most interesting moments is when we realized we were going to do a soft launch, and we had to do a soft launch, particularly for The Bowling Dead, which is a free-to-play game. Now, everybody in the room goes, oh, well, yeah, duh. It's what you do. Free-to-play games, you launch them slowly. You launch them, as the previous speaker said, maybe in Canada or in New Zealand. We're used to going, ta-da! Out it is, here's our game, sell it everywhere, all territories, all at once, simultaneous launch all around the world. It was very hard to get our marketing department to calm down a little bit and to chill, get everyone to just not spam Facebook as hard as they can. That was a big, big learning. The biggest stuff, though, was all of this stuff. Marketing, monetization. The design team had to learn free-to-play design, totally different skill set, frankly, to building a console game. It's not game design, it's monetization design. That was hard for them to figure out. We needed lots of lessons, lots of teaching, lots of study to get that to happen. We started using off-the-shelf analytics to try and figure out what was going on with our product. Didn't really work for us at all, so we ended up rolling our own analytics solutions in-house. So lots of good learning again with that stuff, lots of engineering learning, lots of process learning, lots of trying to figure out what we wanted to find out from these metrics. The marketing team, as I said, were not expecting to do ad-based monetization marketing. They were used to, making friends with all the reviewers in the world and selling the game that way. So it was a big, big change. We needed new hires. We needed new training. We needed new skills. It was all difficult and sometimes expensive to acquire. But we did it. And some lessons. I think this is the stuff that everybody's going to say, yup. This stuff's hard. If there's any console developers in the audience here trying to figure out what's going on, do not underestimate monetization as your main primary problem. It really is. You all know how to make games. And I think there's a bunch of free-to-play mobile developers in the studio going, oh, it's still hard. AAA MVP. So you're talking minimum viable. If minimum and viable involve 3D content and animation and voice acting, that's expensive. You got a ton of it. Even if it's minimum, it's still a lot of content. And when you move to free-to-play, all of a sudden you need yet more because you've got to sell this stuff. It gets really expensive, quite risky. But people are doing it. And there's a whole bunch of success stories starting to emerge. I mean, Infinity Blade started it, and then you had like CSR, Real Racing. I know EA is very, very happy right now. They got 2 million DAUs they just announced with Real Racing 3. That's pretty big numbers. The guys at Z2 up in Seattle are making big impacts with Metal Storm and Nitro, and there's a bunch of good stuff coming out of that studio. Zynga even. I know everybody thinks of Zynga as the big Facebook guys, but actually, you look at Horn, that was a great product. I don't know how well it sold, but it was a great game. I loved it. The Respawnables from the same group, brilliant stuff. I think the biggest one, though, is Injustice. It came out recently. That was, to me, a real sign of what's going to happen in the space, where you take a big console release, you take the content, the assets, the theme, the story, and then you rework the gameplay for mobile. Touchscreen, the controls are completely different. They know it. They've got the same assets. The game looks amazing on both sets of platforms, but it's a completely different game, and it's free to play as opposed to the AAA console that we're used to. And I think the big publishers are really starting to get used to this stuff. They've only just gotten their toes wet, really. There's only a few games out there from the big console publishers, but you're going to see more and more of this stuff happening, where they're taking a AAA console title, bringing it to mobile. They're looking for partnerships. And I think there's a few indie studios that should be a bit worried if they're expecting that EA and Activision and Warner are going to start backing away from mobile. They see it as a big space. They know that there's a lot of money to be made and a lot of users to be had. So I actually think there's an awful lot of opportunity coming for indie studios, whether they're small or large, to make big partnerships and big impacts with their own products. So here we go. Any questions? Thank you.
So if anyone has any questions, raise your hand. We'll bring over a microphone.
Especially with seeing the comments from Kickside this morning, why did you feel that you needed to partner with Activision on publishing this game as opposed to just doing it yourself?
So some of that. So the question was, if you didn't get it, is why did we partner with Activision? Some of it was newbie syndrome. We're used to working with publishers. We're used to working with people who release our games, help us with the marketing. Our marketing department, when we release console titles, is one person. So we had to ramp up our internal marketing, and we felt that we needed help doing that, even as quite a large studio. I will say that there are better partners and worse partners to be partnering with. I think that if you're going to make a big splash with monetization, the previous guy said 50 to 100,000 was kind of his ballpark for where he would monetize. I would say if you want to make a really big splash, like Injustice or Real Racing, you're talking millions, not tens or hundreds of thousands, just in user acquisition. Unless you have that capital, you're going to need to partner. Now, I know Kixeye has that capital, so I think a lot of people are in a different space.
Hi, I got a question about profits. So it seems like you got a huge team working on mobile, and is it worth it? I mean, do you get more money on mobile or more money on consoles? Or is it too early to tell?
Question was, do you get more money on consoles or more money on mobile? I think you need the right product in both spaces. I know a lot of people that have lost their shirts in the console space. I know a lot of people that have lost their shirts in the mobile space too. I will say that the products we've made so far have not made as much cash as the console stuff we did before. We were never the publisher of our console titles, and it's really in the console space, it's the publishers who make all the money. I'll be honest. The developers take a margin. So it's a very different model. If you get a big hit, I think, in the mobile space, you can take off and be absolutely gigantic. Any other questions?
Hey, yeah, you originally said you went with a prepackaged analytics program and then went with your own solution. Do you think that that was actually the right solution? And do you, like, what issues caused you to choose to roll your own?
Why did we roll our own analytics? So what we found was that the off-the-shelf analytics solutions do a great job of presenting a good selection of top-level analytics. You know, they'll tell you your user counts. They'll tell you how well you're selling different IAP. You can get a certain amount of understanding of what's happening. You can build a funnel potentially to show you what's happening at different levels as users progress. What we wanted to see from our own analytics was deeper questions about we wanted to track individual users. How do you understand LTV? LTV, lifetime value, is a really difficult metric to calculate. It's really difficult to track exactly what you're doing unless you've had 12 months of history with it. So tracking LTV for us involved getting cohorts of users, tracking their behavior across time, looking at their spending behavior, and trying to map that onto an algorithm that we could use as a predictive LTV. So that was one of the main reasons. And all of the off-the-shelf analytics solutions have limitations. And we kept running into these at left, right, and center. I won't name any names, but they do. It was expensive to roll our own. We ended up using MongoDB and lots of Java and some C# plugins to try and get graphs out and plug them into Excel. Not the prettiest thing in the world, but it gave us lots of answers.
How long did that take to build?
A couple of months. Like 2 or 3 people. Yeah, it wasn't actually that hard, but to make it pretty would have been a lot of work. Anyone else? So the question was, what was the business relationship model with Activision on our mobile titles? We only worked with Activision on the Bowling Dead, so it was only one title. And I'm not actually allowed to talk about the business details. But what I can say is that the business models are different. Generally, you're right that in console, the publishers pay for the development, and then you get a margin on the back, if you're lucky. In the mobile space, it's almost all self-funded. So you're self-funding the game development itself, almost entirely, I would say. And then on the back end, it's really the publishers helping with monetization and with advertising and user acquisition. So, any other questions? Okay, I think we're done. Thanks, guys.